get you some. Oh yeah. Mate, it's lucky she can cook. Wow.
G'day lovelies, welcome back. Alrighty, today we are making another very old school recipe, Hamburger Potato Bake. First thing we need to do is preheat our ovens at 180 degrees Celsius, and I have a plain electric oven. Today I'm going to be using my cast iron lasagna dish. Now whatever oven dish you're going to use, it needs to be roughly 30 centimeters long by 23 centimeters wide by 6 centimeters deep. So the first thing we're going to need is 500 grams of lean beef mince. Now I bought this 800 gram one from Coles because the other 300 grams we're going to be making pasties next. So today I'm doing the mushroom version, but if you don't like mushrooms, I will go through the alternative. So first up we need a 420 gram can of condensed cream of mushroom soup. If you don't want to do mushroom, you can get a 420 gram can of condensed cream of chicken soup. I've got 200 grams of mushrooms. You can use as many as you want. If you're doing the chicken soup, you can swap the mushrooms out for, say, a cup of frozen corn or literally anything you want. Now we need roughly a 385 ml of full cream evaporated milk. You can find this next to the UHT milks. I will write the recipe below the video in the description as always. Now for the cheese, I'm going to use the shelf cheese because I absolutely love them. You can get them at Coles, IGA, Foodland. You'll find them next to the Vegemites and jams. Now if you don't like it, you can always use grated tasty cheese. If you like using salt, you can use salt and pepper. I'm just going to use pepper. You need 3 cloves of garlic crushed or 3 heaped teaspoons of jar garlic. I'm going to be using parsley today, but that is absolutely optional. We need 1 large onion chopped, but I've only got smaller ones, so I'll use 2. And potatoes. So with the potatoes, I'll peel and slice them as we go, so we don't waste any. If you're using parsley, chop some up. We want to chop up the onions. If you're using mushrooms, we want to chop them up. First thing we need to do is put a frying pan on medium heat. Now if you're using a non-stick pan, we don't need oil. If you're using a pan that is non-stick, just put a tiny little bit of oil or even butter in. We want to put our beef mince in first, and we want to chop it all up. Throw in our onions. Now we just want to brown it all for a couple of minutes. Alright, a couple of minutes later when we've browned it all, we now want to add our chopped mushrooms or your corn or whatever you're putting in. And we want to toss that around for another couple of minutes. Alright, that's probably been about 3 or 4 minutes. Once our mushrooms start to go soft, we now want to add our 3 cloves of crushed garlic or 3 heaped teaspoons of jar garlic and mix that through. Okay, a minute or so later, we now want to add our condensed cream of mushroom soup or our chicken soup, our can of evaporated milk. Mix that all through really well together. Once we've got it all mixed through together, if you're using parsley, just get a chopped handful and put that in now and mix that through. Once it starts to simmer, turn it straight off. Now when we go to layer it in our pan, we want to imagine what 1/3 is, 2/3, because we want to do it in 3 lots, okay? So you just sort of roughly work out how much you're going to need, and we want to do that, okay? So we want 1, 2, 3. Alright, now if we're using the block cheese, we want to grate it up. So I've got a 500 gram block, so I'll start off with grating half of it up, because you can use as much or as little as you like. And if you've already got your tasty shredded, well, you're ready to go. So now we want to peel, rinse and slice the potatoes as we go. So if you haven't thought about it before, if you peel your potatoes into a bowl instead of onto the sink or whatever, it's really easy to throw them out. So to slice our spuds, we don't want them paper thin, but we don't want them thick either. So that's kind of perfect. Alright, so we do up our first lot and we cover the base of our dish. Once our first layer's down, we now want to put a third of our mix over the top. Once we've done that, just get a fork and spread it out. Now we get a handful of whatever cheese we're using and we want to sprinkle that over. Now we want to peel, wash and slice our next layer of spuds. Now our next layer of our mix. Our next layer of cheese. Now we want to do our last layer of the spuds. Alright, I use probably only about half that bowl of spuds. Okay, now we want to do our last layer of mix. Now for the top row of cheese, I'm going to use the tasty shredded because the shelf cheese, what we're going to do is going to put it in the oven with an alfoil on, and then after a certain amount of time we're going to take it off. So if you're using the shelf cheese, it goes dry. So I'm going to use the other and give that a good whack on the top. I forgot to add it in at the beginning, but breadcrumbs are absolutely optional, but I love to just sprinkle a little bit over them. So when we take the alfoil off for that 10-15 minutes, it kind of gives a crunchy yet chewy texture, but you absolutely do not have to have them. So I'm just going to put a fine sprinkle over the whole thing. Now we want to cover it in alfoil and seal it up really well. We want to bang it in the oven for 55 minutes. After 55 minutes, we want to take the alfoil off and set the timer for another 15 minutes. Now, if you live on your own or there's only 2 of you, you can still make up a big batch like that, because you can get things like this, which is the alfoil containers with the lids. Now, they're pretty big ones, so there's probably enough in those for 2, or you can get the smaller ones. So once it's cooked, you can fill up your alfoil containers, you can put your lid on, and then you can write on the lid what it is and stick them in the freezer, and you've got meals for days. And then when you want to eat them, you can just take it out the freezer, bang it in the oven at 180 degrees with the lid on, frozen, and let them heat up. Oh my God, mate, this house smells absolutely amazing. Alright, after the 55 minutes, when I took the alfoil off, I ended up leaving it in there for 25 minutes, not 15, until all the cheese went golden brown on top. Now this stays really hot for ages, so you want to leave it sit there for at least 10 minutes, because that way it settles and the sauce gets a little bit thicker, but you can leave it there longer. I usually leave it while I'm getting all the plates ready and, you know, doing all that sort of stuff. Well, there you have it, lovelies. Hamburger potato bake. Mate, I forgot just how awesome this recipe is. Now, a couple of the end bits of the potato that were fatter weren't quite cooked through. So what I should have said is after the 55 minutes, lift a bit of the alfoil and stick a fork in. If it goes through really easy, they're cooked, and you can take the alfoil off and then cook for the extra 20-25 minutes till golden brown. But if you stick the fork in and some of it is still a little bit hard, put the alfoil back on and just keep cooking it, checking it every 10 minutes or so until the potatoes are soft. Once they're soft, take the alfoil off and cook for that 20-25 minutes till beautiful golden brown. Mate, I can't wait for you to give it a crack. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves an awesome night. I will hopefully, if everything goes well, be back Wednesday afternoon with pasties. Toodles!